Okay, in this screencast I want to look into the tools available for the HTML and JavaScript side of the hybrid applications. So in the case of the demo example, which was the Jigsaw puzzle piece, on the desktop this application doesn't respond to clicks or touches. So if I actually look at the code for the JavaScript, you can see here that the application in JavaScript, I have defined key left, key right, key up and key down as the keyboard codes here, and the functions anti-clockwise rotates the piece minus 90 degrees, and the function clockwise rotates the piece plus 90 degrees. So obviously if you invoke either of these functions, it's going to rotate accordingly. So the key down function is the key down event, which switch statement according to the key code will either rotate anti-clockwise or clockwise the puzzle piece. So we can test that out. That is pressing the keys on the keyboard actually does call the JavaScript function, and so in a way the functions are already tested in the desktop, where I'm using key presses to activate the functions, which in Xcode the hope is to in Xcode use gestures, touch gestures instead. However, having said that, in terms of the way the development of this went, that was before looking into the touch gestures, native touch gestures, and the JavaScript here is responding to touch. So this section here, touch events, we have on touch start, on touch move, on touch end. Okay, so these together give a route to interpreting the touches in JavaScript, and so the code here in JavaScript is interpreting the touch and deciding if the touches received justify rotating the puzzle piece clockwise or rotating it anti-clockwise. And so it's a fairly crude sort of implementation. It's just at the end of the day finding out if the touch had progressed in the Y direction by more than 10 units, etc., and it's just been iteratively tweaked to get the effect. So in that respect, I can't test that on the desktop. I can't test those on the desktop. So how, if that was the route you were going to go down, was use JavaScript, how would you test it? Well, one option you can have is use Xcode, and from Xcode, open developer tool, iOS simulator, open Safari, and I'll just clear that. So from Safari, take the index.html file and drag and drop it in to the simulator, and that will tell it to open that file in the iOS simulator Safari, and then we can test it out and the touches do behave as expected. There's two interpretations. One's just a single touch and the other's a swipe, in which case it rotates it in the direction of the swipe. So that's something that can also be put on a website and run on your iPhone device or indeed other handheld devices with touchscreens, and you can find out that way how well they are compatible. So what you would do on your iPhone or iPod Touch or iOS device is, what you could do is click on the bookmark button as if to add bookmark. Sorry, it's I think it's this one. So instead of bookmark, it's add to home screen. You can use add to home screen, and you just give it a name, and it adds it to the home screen. And as you can see, we have an icon as well. And so if I click on the icon and launch it, it actually appears somewhat as if it's a native application, because the Chrome, if you like, of Safari, the menu bars are gone. So that was something that was deliberately done in the HTML file with the meta tag here, meta name equals Apple mobile web app capable, content equals yes, and the other meta tag, which is generally a good one for a mobile device, is this one. So if it's designed to fit on the iPhone screen, it's meta name equals viewport, content equals user scalable, no device width equals device width. And so what that's telling it is not to perform any scaling on it, that it's already been scaled to the size of the phone. Otherwise it would assume that it's a desktop sized website that's going to get scaled down into the phone, and so the scaling would be wrong. That simple line, that line, you can just virtually copy paste into your own HTML if you want it to respond accordingly. And of course this is an issue explored in your research on responsive web design. So this line of code should probably be familiar already. And the other adjustment is in the HTML tag itself. The attribute manifest equals, and then pointing to a manifest file, which the manifest file has this format here, which is just a listing of the files which should be cached. So cache is like your hard disk or flash memory storage on the device, which is going to have a special area just to save temporary files and access them first before going to the web server in order to save the round trip. So if it's caching the files and it's set up correctly, it should be able to work offline as well. So that's the reason for the manifest cache file. So I think other than that, there's no major differences to a regular web page really. So looking again at the JavaScript here, so we have the ability to call the function rotate clockwise, anti-clockwise through the desktop using the keyboard keys, and we can also do likewise on the device, whether that is loaded from a website or in perhaps testing it using the using Safari on the device like so. So effectively, there's, in this case, because everything is working as a web application that's mobile capable, there's no necessary reason to embed it within a native application. So that's, that's all well and good, but part of what we're looking at is the native gestures. So this code here in JavaScript is a reasonable exploration of touch on the device. However, in Xcode, using the native gesture recognizers, you don't really need to go into the detail of tracking the touches and trying to sort of interpret the data, as to what sort of gestures being made. So that's kind of our objective. Our next objective is to look at the case where we don't have the JavaScript touch recognition. So for that reason, I'm going to delete the code which relates to the touch events in the JavaScript. So if I delete that code and save the file, and with any luck I wouldn't have I've not over deleted or anything, so I can just test that again, make sure that there's no errors. So the desktop version still works. How about actually what I can do to see clearly if there's any errors is I should open that in the desktop Safari, and the reason being it will connect to the simulator if I open the developer tools. So develop iPhone simulator, point to the file, and so the developer console is now related to what's going on in the simulator. And so again, I just want to first step is just to open that up in the simulator, switch to Safari, go to develop iPhone simulator index, and check here it's not reporting any errors. Let's just see, it is seeing, however, the files there within this, so it is communicating. I suspect I've maybe made a little bit of work here because maybe the caching is counting against me. Let's just check that out. Yeah, it's still responding to the touch at this point. So so I suspect it's because the caching's working a bit too well at the moment. So I'll just gloss over that just now. I'm sure there's a way to clear the cache in order to proceed, but just it's actually probably quite useful because what we can see here is that the developer tools are communicating with this, and I should be able to prove that because if you look at the JavaScript, let's have a look. Yeah, again, just doing this off the bat, I think in the JavaScript, because it's in a closure, I've kind of hidden access to this to this function. So I'm wondering, is there any internals that I have access to? Maybe not, but let's just, for example, look at the code, anti-clockwise code here. Is a bit of jQuery, so it's selector jigsaw piece.css WebKit transform rotate. So I'll just copy that and go to the console and paste it. So selecting jigsaw piece.css WebKit transform rotate, and then I'll finish it off 90. I think it's 90 degrees, and make sure I get the syntax correct. Whoa, there you go. So just play that again. Just the up arrow on the keyboard to go back in history one step. So we have the rotate 90 degrees. We already went 90 degrees. Let's put 0 degrees. So it's absolute values, that's why I'm changing it each time. So 0 degrees, then 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Okay, so I think that proves the fact that the console in the desktop Safari is communicating with the mobile Safari in this case. So you can see, for debugging purposes, this is quite a useful setup if you're working with the Apple Safari sort of environment. So I'll just close that, and in the next section what I'll cover is what I talked about earlier, was the progression where we'll having deleted the touch recognition JavaScript, so we'll be forced to implement that using native touch gestures.